One of those rare times in the new series where we get a glimpse into the Doctor's past that I think gets overlooked and is underrated was in Steven Moffatt's Listen. I think after the alleged revelations in The Timeless Children, it was worth having a look. In the novel Lungbarrow, the seventh Doctor comes home, not just to Gallifrey, but to his house, where he grew up. It's the first domestic look at Gallifrey and her people. We learn that the Doctor, like all Gallifreyans, was loomed, or genetically grown as they were a barren people. We also learn the great houses, where the Loom were born and raised, are also loomed, and are also sentient things. Their purpose was to intuitively provide everything the family needed. As some Gallifreyans are loomed as children and some as adults, the house itself will reconfigure, making rooms and furniture larger or smaller in order to maintain some continuity of childhood to the Loomborn. We learn the Doctor has 45 cousins loomed into the noble house of Lungbarrow. They all witnessed his looming and discovered he's the only one loomed with a belly button. This caused him to have scornful nicknames like Snail and Wormhole, as his belly button is an outie. The Doctor was an oddball from the beginning. Of those 45 cousins, few are female. The Infinity Doctors shows us it's like that with all of the Loomborn, as at the time only 10% of Gallifreyans are loomed as women. Something else of note is that the House of Lungbarrow was known for producing leaders and presidents in Time Lord society. The Doctor was the family's best hope for a presidency. There's far more to the story I will not be getting into here, other than, in the end, the house flings itself off a cliff, unable to live with its shame. With all that's going on in Listen, there was one scene that old-school Doctor Who fans should have caught, yet I fear so few, if nobody, is talking about it. It's when Clara has the TARDIS land in the Doctor's past on Gallifrey. So much was packed into that one scene. When Clara hides under the bed on Gallifrey in the barn we apparently saw on the day of the Doctor, hearing a young child crying, two grown-ups enter the barn. They try and coax the boy back into the house with all the other boys. The man complains he will never be a Time Lord, as if he's very disappointed. Speaking of Clara, look how comfortably she fits under that bed. Let's face it, that's a big bed. What's more is, that's a big child. Grown, I'd say. If you don't know where I'm going with this, look at the same bed in Hell Bent. And it's interesting how the barn looks, well, loomed. I mean, that set is pretty blatant when you look at it. Also notice how there's a barn in the middle of nowhere in Day of the Doctor, when in Listen it's heavily implied there was a house nearby where everyone else was living. So many Fairweather fans and New Whovians were never able to come to terms that the Doctor lived on after it was cancelled in 1989. To some degree, this is good for a television show that relies on a lot of mystery to the character. There is an origin story to the Doctor, but you have to work for it. You have to do some fandom archaeology and unravel some of the massive lore behind our hero and his people. Quite often, people claim it's not canon, but do so mainly because they know so little about it. Even though the BBC said Lungbarrow and all the new adventures were canon, releasing a PDF version of Lungbarrow on their website for the world at large to download, while it came back on TV in 2005, the BBC never overlooked the Virgin novels. They honored them and licensed them as ongoing Doctor Who. Lungbarrow was the culmination of an arc that began in 1988 when the Seventh Doctor first appeared on our screens. It also set the stage for, and was further explained and explored in further BBC novels and the Big Finish audios. Listen is one solid example of the television series continuity fitting into that of the ongoing novels, particularly one of the most important novels in all of Doctor Who lore. Lungbarrow blew the lid off Doctor Who. This alleged origin story did nothing more than make the oldest question in the universe bigger and damn near impossible to ever get answered. It made him ancient on a cosmic scale, yet limited and relatable on a human level. everything you need for Doctor Who. Cartmel, Aronovich, Platt put the Who back in Doctor Who. The apparent revelation of the timeless children wrote the Who out of Doctor Who. I'm Jack Taylor.